Y'all ready for this?
Let's do this thing.
Huh?
Let's do this thing.
What's that you say, Sonny?
Thing. T-A-N-G. Thing.
Nah. Howdy, folks, and welcome to episode 540 of the Dead Robot Society. I'm Paul E. Cooley. Joining me, as always, Mr. Terry Nixon. How are you?
Howdy ho, neighbor.
I'm not even going to say it. What the hell's up with you, man?
Slow writing, but having a good time? Does that make sense?
Slow writing. Why is the writing slow?
Because I'm wandering into the middle of the book, and the swampy middle was making me forget where I was going, and I didn't realize it was happening. Because
you know what I recommend?
I was so buried down in the scenes that I wasn't feeling the pace slow, and I need to go ahead and pick up the pace.
I recommend you go back and watch our episode on the swampy middle.
You know, that would probably be a good thing. Except that Terry guy, he don't know shit.
He doesn't know jack squat. So the swampy middle is giving you fits right now?
It's not giving me fits. I'm actually satisfied with where I am. It's just for the last couple of days, I haven't wanted to write because I had lost track of where I was going. And now that I realize that I need to at least look a little bit further ahead to see where my goal is in the intermediate distance, now it'll be fine. Except I'm not going to be able to write tomorrow because I've got to go have lunch with some guy.
Oh, that's right. I knew there was something on my calendar for tomorrow. Yeah.
You still haven't told me where, but sure.
I'll tell you that when you're on your way. I'll make it more of a surprise.
That's actually what I figured you'd do. I was totally going to leave here and then text you and say, so where are we going?
Oh, we'll figure that out after we shut down the recording. I'll give you your marching orders.
Roger that.
Yeah. And what is it? There you go. Anyway, that's all you had to report?
The pre-order for book 5 in the Vengeance, the Vigilante series is probably going to be out tomorrow ish.
Yeah.
And it's going to be less than 2 weeks before it goes live. So yeehaw to that. Book 1 in the Vigilante series is on sale for 99 cents. So if you want to read where this all started with Heart of Vengeance, you can go out and get a copy inexpensively. And you should.
Terry's pimping. Who knew?
Hey, it happens occasionally.
Yeah, it does.
Other than that, about 2 weeks away from going and seeing stuff in Napa. Cool. Seeing other writers. Weirdly, Glenn Stewart, who is my co-writer in this, is also going to be there. So we're getting this book kicked out the door, and it's going to be published and go live while we're both out of town. So what could possibly go wrong?
I think there's going to be a lot of drinking at the bar.
Not from me.
Maybe not for you, but I think there's going to be a lot of drinking at the bar. I could be wrong.
Somebody bought tickets for a pile of us that are going to be there on Thursday night that are staying after the get-together to go watch Avengers Endgame in the IMAX. That's going to be fun.
Oh, yeah. That will be fun. I'm not jealous. You're just, slacker.
I don't know that I've seen a movie in an IMAX.
You'll enjoy it. Trust me.
It's only 3 hours and 1 minute long, so I better be a little cautious on drinking that soda.
It's a Marvel Madness movie.
I totally wish that they would have. It's been 10 years of Marvel movies. They should have the guy from Ant-Man do an explanation of everything that has come before.
Why Ant-Man?
There's a guy in there that they put the truth serum on him, and he just gives this long, rambling explanation of whatever they asked him the question of, and it is awesome.
Okay.
It is amazing.
Gotcha. Well, in between fighting robots and doing other work and recording, I got back to work on the work in progress, which has now changed 14 times. Because what is my work in progress at the moment, Terry? I have no idea.
I can't say because it's a secret. There's an NDA.
So I've been working on a supplement for the Black, which will impart some information very, very important for the 5th book in that series. That'll be available for my patrons when I finish it. And then I got back to work on Derelict Trident last night, and I have no idea why. It just was time. So I've been going after that and getting stuff done there. I was just going to have some cleanup on some earlier chapters, but I'm pretty happy with where it is. I just have to now chronicle the whole disaster area that is going to be their homecoming, so to speak. So looking forward to that. Still got to finish the short story for Handley, and got to write a short story for Scott Pond. So I got things to do. I'm busy.
I have to write the first 500 words of a space opera story that I am already jonesing to write. So I may write that soon just because it would be fun.
Why 500 words?
Because the submissions for it is to send the first 500 words so that selection can be made of what's going to be included based on the start of the story.
Huh. This is for an anthology?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
It's an interesting way of going about it, but I can see where that would make life interesting, because if you can't grab the person's attention in the first 500 words, then it's probably not the right book.
Gotcha.
Or the right short story in this case. Yeah.
Huh.
It's a challenge to write 500 words that make you go, well, what the hell happens next? Now I have to know what happens next.
Right. Gotcha. Okay, well, good luck with that.
And then I've got to write J.R. Handley a post-apocalyptic story.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to write that when I'm done with the book that I'm currently writing now. I'll probably write the 500 words of the short story, the other short story at the same time.
Well, I've got quite a bit of work to do in the next month or two. But what shocked me, Terry, was Derelict is the 4th Derelict book is now over 45,000 words.
That's awesome.
I was shocked. I did not realize that. And that's not including the 40,000 words I've jettisoned.
We really need to explain this whole writing process
because of the 3 restarts. So you just have to understand. I have to have a couple of bad starts before I find where the book is actually supposed to fucking go. It's just how I work. I don't know why, it just is.
All right, I'll accept that.
Yeah, well, accept nothing. Terry, we need to class this joint up.
Oh boy, that wouldn't take much.
We need to class this joint up with, an interview with somebody who obviously knows more than we do. So
anyone, you're just going to walk out right now, out your front door, and grab the first person you see.
Not quite. There is somewhat of, some choice criteria here. So for the first time, as long as I can remember, we have another horror writer coming on. So why don't we get over there and see just how scary she is? And joining us today is author, editor, Leah Lederman. Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So let's see. Looks to me like you have been hanging out in the horror world for quite a while.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I'm trying to think of how long it's been. I think my first editing credit was for Dirk Manning's Right or Wrong. It's a guidebook to creating your own comics. And he is a noted indie horror comic author. And that was back in 2011 or 12. So however many years that makes that. Since then, I have worked with Howie Noldecken and Casey Pierce, Stephanie Menard, Russell Nolte, all of them, again, pretty decent big names in the indie comic community. And then there are a lot of other ones that I'm failing to think of right now, and I'll remember them as the interview progresses. But I kind of stumbled across everyone by accident. I don't pursue horror, but it pursues me.
That's a kind of scary sort of thing when the horror is chasing you.
That's how I feel. I was like, in this Kickstarter, the video, I just had to tell people, like, this is a crime of opportunity. This book, I felt like it fell on me. And I felt responsible to tell it and to put it out there, because I was working with these different horror authors. There were 3 or 4 different ones at one time, and I'm working through these deadlines, and I work after the kids go to bed. So it's late, it's dark, it's quiet.
Not spooky at all.
No, not at all. And, you know, I'm a big wuss. You know, I'm terrified of my own shadow. When I lived in a house where there was a laundry downstairs in the basement, I did not do laundry after dark.
I'm with you. I lived in Canada for a while with a basement. Yeah, terrifying.
Oh my gosh. And so here I am late at night, dark, quiet, alone. And I'm editing these stories, and, you know, I'm not just reading the stories, but I'm rereading them. I'm taking them apart line by line. I'm so deep into it. And I go outside to take my dog to go to the bathroom, and I'm checking over my shoulder. I was so freaked out because I was hearing these different voices from these different authors and stories, and they were kind of creating their own weird cacophony, if I can use that word. Oh my goodness. And I thought, I've got to put a book together where these different authors are just plied side by side. And I want to hear all these characters talk to each other, because that's what was happening in my head. And it was terrifying. I was like telling the dog, like, come on, hurry up and pee.
I have stuff to write.
Yeah, and I was so scared. So yeah, it was a crime of opportunity as a freelance editor, and I had access to these great writing minds, like you know, and at that time, of course, I was working with male authors, and of course I still am, but for this project I figured, let's just go with all these women, because I felt like I wasn't hearing as much from them. And quite frankly, I have 5 brothers. At that time I had 2 sons, a husband, boy cats. I was surrounded by testosterone. Everything was male. And I thought, I just want to hear a bunch of ladies sit down and talk together. And what do I know? What do I have in common with all these people? Horror. Okay, so let's do this. And it kind of really took on a life of its own. It's been a real ride. That's what I can tell you.
So are there characters really talking to one another?
No, that's actually kind of more of a larger metaphor. I mean, there's what came out, that they were, this was my first anthology, and I know that a lot of anthologies, people set a theme, like, hey, everyone write about, I don't know, ferrets. But I didn't do that. I just asked each of these women to contribute a story, and I really didn't give them any guidelines past that, except that it was horror and it had to be under a certain word count, etc. And I just wanted to see what they would come up with. And it worked out perfectly, because there are emerging themes that came out, and I knew that would happen, because having worked with it for so long, I just knew, we've got isolation, we've got there were some pet things going on, good and bad. There's mourning and grief, death, of course. So just, these are themes that can apply universally. It's not a gender thing, but I was curious to see how women dealt with it and how it turned up in a female horror story. And it really worked. It was kind of a leap of faith, but it really worked, and that these themes emerged. And so the characters do not literally speak to one another throughout the stories. That's a different book. And, we'll talk about that one in another podcast. I've
actually been part of an anthology where it was a bar scene where different characters from different universes were brought in, and nice. Literally all the authors had to go through all the stories and insert their own characters' interactions with the person telling the stories.
Wow.
It was a very different experience.
Yeah, no, and I'm going to fool with that in the future. I have some ideas set for, different ways of telling the same story and things like that, where the voices of different authors come in and the different characters come in. But for this particular anthology, what I was after was, I just wanted to hear voices of women in a generic sense, in a universal sense, I think is a better way to say that. I wanted to know what was on women's minds, these women that I knew, because I know each of these women, and I wanted to see what would come out, and it worked out perfectly. The various themes come up, and each author kind of deals with it, and each character deals with these things in different ways. So it was very, very organic, which was precisely my intention from the beginning. I selected my writers really carefully, knowing how they wrote because I had edited for them before, or I had spoken, I knew them. And it's exactly what came out as a result. So we have, in one sense, a great hodgepodge of stories, but because they're not unified specifically by a theme, but they're very clearly all governed by the same kinds of things that concern women and concern horror authors. And it came out beautifully, very organically. And also, I want to throw out there that it wasn't just the writers and the stories themselves. I also have each story is accompanied by a piece of artwork, whether it's photography or illustration or a painting, that the artist was, talked to me or the writer. In some cases, they read the story and came up with their own artwork. In other stories, they were kind of, depending on the writer and what they wanted, they were coached more through it. But so each story has a specifically tailored piece of artwork to accompany that, also by a female. So we hear not just the voices of the characters, but we see the interpretation of that story by a female artist. And holy crap, guys, it's it's really amazing to see what we've come up with. So I'm really excited. I lost track of what your original question was.
That's okay. It happens on this show a lot.
Okay,
Who are you again, Terry?
Oh, I was just asking if the characters were interacting. So question answered.
Yeah.
Do you think that you got a more intimate stories, more intimate submissions because of knowing everybody, or because it didn't have a unifying theme? Do you think basically you managed to get something a little more personal out?
I absolutely did. And thank you for asking that question, because it allows me to articulate one point that I've kind of been coming back to. I've been taking notes, and I journal regularly, and I journal about projects I'm working on, kind of about the process. And one thing that really struck me about this project is, okay, I'm a freelance freelance editor. And so I get people who come by and say, hey, can you do this for me? I need it in 3 months or what have you. And they just dump it on me. No problem. We get it done and we go back and forth. I still think the editing and writing.
That's what we need. We need more writing.
More writing.
I'm going to use that. That's my new phrase. But the editor-writer relationship is so intimate, right? If you take me in the right way, because I'm going into the things that you've poured out of your heart and your mind, your soul, but usually it's still a very practical and straightforward experience. Like, hey, you've got a dangling modifier. Hey, this would make more sense if you put this first. But when I asked these women for stories, what I received with each story was an addendum that I did not request, but each writer said, well, this is why I wrote this story. And this is why I want to include the story. And I didn't ask them. Because I know them, and I said, hey, I want you to write me a story for this book. And each one of them kind of said, well, I was writing this because I was going through something in my life, and this story has really helped me get through it. Or I was really, really mad at someone, and so I wrote this story.
And that's how the body ended up in the creek.
And that's why the chainsaw has all that red on it.
Exactly. That's actually very accurate.
Okay, now I'm really interested.
So these were manifestations of different emotions. And, again, usually as an editor, when I receive a story, I just get the story. And I don't ask for background on it. Or, it might come out here or there. But in this anthology, very consistently, each writer said, this is why I want to do this. This is why I wrote this story and why I chose the story. So it came out, just really, again, organically. Like, I didn't ask for that, but it came out, and I was so thankful for it. So I think that me having a personal, I just had this thought now, and it's going to sound really egotistical, but the one theme that tied them all together was me, in a sense. Like, I said, hey guys, I know all of you, and I'm asking all of you to write me a story. And so they each explained to me why they gave me this story. And it turned out to be really remarkable to hear that. I don't usually get to hear that side of things. So.
I'm going to throw out a guess that you actually are the theme in this, because you're the one that knows these people. So you're the one that chose to reach out to each individual person. You know their personalities. So in a way, you actually are. When
I first said it, I'm like, oh, that sounds so self-centered. But the universe really does revolve around me. So
we're writers. That's how we all think.
My universe revolves around me.
The universe tales.
As we call it, daily life.
Yeah, right. The one of the things for the cover, when I was talking to the artist about the cover, it's a tabletop, and there's some women around the tabletop, but the focus of the image is the things on the tabletop. And there are basically, each one was an image from each author. I asked them, tell me what's one image that you would bring to a party if you were, talking about this book. And this was the real party for this book. And what would you bring? So we've got, ceremonial knives, syringes.
Syringes?
It's great.
Because I'm always bringing those to a party. Well, apparently.
Not drug use, but poisoning. Let's be clear.
I kind of figured.
Dog collars, baby monitors.
Ooh, baby monitors. Oh, no.
Oh,
hey, Paul, you need a haunted baby monitor.
No.
Oh, that was actually the first story written. Yeah.
Anything with a radio transmitter in it gives me the freaking heebie-jeebies.
Me too.
I wear hearing aids and I have enough auditory hallucinations. Thank you very much. I don't need any more.
I wrote the story that contributed to the baby monitor. And it was actually based on, I heard something that I thought I didn't, but I did on the baby monitor, and was like, oh boy, I'm not going to sleep tonight.
Yep, here we go. The poltergeist is here. Time to pack up and leave again.
Right. And so this whole cover is just images from the book, each selected by the different authors, and then transmuted into this cover image. And the whole theme I kept going back to was like, this is the kind of party you want to be invited to, right? You want to look at that and go, how do I get invited to that? Like, that's crazy. What's going on there? And that's kind of what this whole book is about. What is going on in there? They've got all these voices, these really great names in the indie community, and hell yeah, I want to hang out with them, because it was all a cafe of ideas, a cafe of characters, all in my head. And that the cover image is conveys that perfectly, of just some kind of weird, crazy, but awesome party, a cafe of ideas. So that's what I was after.
And so the book is called The Cafe Macabre?
Yeah. I like how you rolled your R. I can't do that.
It just sounds so superior.
Well, could you say chupacabra, Paul?
I did not say chupacabra.
Could you say it for us, though?
There is a chupacabra story in it. So, we get back to that. The rolled R is maybe another theme I'll have to practice. Chupacabra.
Crashed velour.
Macabre.
All right. So now it's time to figure out what's going on. Where are you on the side of Bigfoot erotica and horror? Which side do you come down on?
I didn't know there was a thing. But, I'm going to have to put my foot down on the side of a hell no, dude.
You didn't know there was Bigfoot erotica?
You know what? I shelter myself because no one else.
That's probably a good thing.
I have blinders on when I'm on the internet because I know what lurks.
We all know what lurks.
I don't need that in my life. I made it really clear. Actually, I didn't make it clear. But as I'm running this Kickstarter, one of the reward tiers is that, hey, I'll write a piece of flash fiction and I'll let you contribute some ideas and some story prompts. But I did have to put the caveat in there, like, there's a comfort levels that you're going to have to deal with. I'm sorry, there are things that are off limits that I'm not going to write about because, it's a rated R book, but I'm PG-13 at best when I'm not haunting baby monitors or killing people.
Wow. Okay. More choice cuts to go in the blackmail bag over here. So you do realize I edit this show, right?
Yeah.
I have snips and clips of everything. Yeah. Somebody needs to edit Terry. Because nobody will edit him except me.
Have Minnie do it. Minnie would be happy to edit.
Minnie is not going to edit the show, nor is she going to edit your books.
I've been trying to get my cats to do it for years, and all they do is sit on the keyboard. It does not work.
Sit on the keyboard, sit on your shoulder, and your head, your chest, wherever. Yeah, they're good at it.
Yes, they are.
I saw somebody on the internet selling a decoy keyboard for your cats to lay on so that they lay on the wrong one while you're working.
oh my God, that's genius. But it has to be heated.
It would have to be heted. That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
Well,
Nice.
the moment you get a piece of heated anything, it doesn't matter what it is. They just cats.
Well, cats and children are very similar. They smell productivity, and I can tell you, I mean, that's deeply instinctual. It's in the gene code. This book has been produced, written, edited through many cat and child fiasco. That's been the real. That's also, I think, part of why I was dealing with women, was because I was like, listen, you know, this is my life. Is very, you know, I'm surrounded by these. Oh gosh, now I'm going to sound super sexist. But you know, I was a teacher and a mom, and you know, I was like all these thankless tasks. So I really wanted to be, you know, in charge of something, like something that would be a tangible outcome that people could see and feel and hold in their hand. And that's what this book is. It's a tangible outcome of all of the things that I'm working on.
Is that how you got into editing? Is leading from teaching to editing?
Pretty precisely, actually. Yeah. I taught college English, research, humanities for 7-8 years. And then I was going to have my second child, a little boy, and I just knew that daycare cost, you know, 2/3 of my check, and I don't get benefits because, you know, the whole college education scheme, higher education, is kind of in trouble. And so I was adjuncting. I didn't have benefits, and I'm working like crazy, and I just knew I can't sustain this if I'm going to be having a baby. It just doesn't quite work. But I didn't want to have the mom gap on my resume. So I thought, well, I've been editing. Why don't I turn that into a thing? So I rolled it right over from teaching into freelance editing and really put myself out there. That was about 5 years ago. And it worked out really well. I felt like there was continuity, there was progress. But then I was getting restless, and I was feeling like I want to make this more about me. Because, you know, again, this is a universal theme. And I wanted to have my own product to put out there. I was so inspired by the people I worked for and with on editing projects that I thought, why don't I get in on this? You know, and so this book is so much a birth of my work as an editor. It's really, it came straight out of that. Like I said, I was, you know, sitting alone editing work after everyone was asleep, and 3 or 4 different authors on my keyboard at one time, and I thought, that's it. We're going to do this. So this is, I have a few stories published and a few poems and things like that published, but this is my first book. This is my first Kickstarter, my first huge giant project, and I think it's a very linear progress from being a teacher to being an editor to apparently now being an author. So it's exciting.
I definitely feel your pain on the teaching end, because my wife, before she and I got together, was an adjunct professor teaching financial stuff.
Yeah. No, it was a rough bag, and I love it. I definitely feel, I kind of have said to people before, I feel like academia is kind of like an ex-boyfriend, and I'm still bitter. But I love it, and I'm hoping we'll get back together
at some point in the future, maybe.
Yes, no, and I absolutely see it in my future. I know I'll go back, but it just doesn't work. I feel for those people who have young children and who don't have the option. I don't know that I had the option. I honestly was like, I can't work as much as I needed to work, 5 classes or more, and not get health insurance and have to pay daycare. So I just opted to stay home. And if I'm going to stay home, well, I'm going to have a tangible outcome. I'm going to have something I'm very task oriented. And so I need to have a product in my hand of something that I have done and accomplished. And, you know, as much as I love my kids,
they're like a work in progress.
Yes, right.
They're more like a disaster in progress, Terry, not a work in progress.
A constant disaster in progress.
It's much easier looking back at my stepkids who are now in their late 20s and 30s. So I'm okay.
And I don't have kids.
Every bag of frozen vegetables in my freezer has been used for like some consumption or another. I just posted like my dinner is literally seasoned with the tears of my children because like, oh, here's the broccoli bag. It's already defrosted. Thanks.
How many kids do you have?
I have 3. I have 2 boys and a girl. The sweet thing is, as I was saying earlier, when I was coming up with this book idea, I was surrounded by boys. And while this book was in progress, I had a 3rd kid, and it was a girl. So, you know, hopefully she's not crazy haunted because of this book.
No, that never happens outside of the Stephen King story.
I'm sure possession is out of the question.
Yeah, possession.
You know, it might be in the running for, it might explain a few things about other children that I have. The baby monitor story was inspired by I was just moved to this house and I was editing something and I felt something cold go by me, and like a brush of air, and just like if someone were running past you. And I looked over and there was nothing there, no one there. And I looked over at my cat and her eyes were like this big and her pupils were huge. And I was like, oh my God, she saw it, whatever that was. Like something just ran by me. And I don't know what it was, but I know in that same cycle of air right there, it's not an air vent, anything like that. There has been a picture frame that has fallen 3 or 4 times. Like every couple of months, the picture frame just falls. So there's something crazy ass haunted in my house, and it inspired the story because I was terrified that my unborn child was going to be.
We've probably all had experiences like that. When I was growing up, my parents ran a drive-in grocery store. Mm-hmm. And as a kid, I was in the store and I saw someone walk past the restroom and into the back area. And I went to tell them that they missed the bathroom and there was nobody back there. And there was no way out either. I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. Where did they go? I was only like 11 or 12. So it's not like I had a whole lot of clue in there, but sometimes strange things happen.
Strange things happen, and I have to say, you know, this weird thing with the picture frame that keeps falling down in that same area where I felt the gust of wind. You know, I don't get really creeped out, super crazy about ghosts, but I feel like this is a happy thing. I don't feel like I'm in danger or anything weird. I definitely feel like there's something there, and it inspired one of the stories. From this collection. So it works out. I try to turn all of these crazy things that keep me up at 2 a.m, 3 a.m. I write them down. Once you write them down, you can kind of control them more. It's kind of how I feel.
What about you, Paul? Have you ever had any ghostly experiences, Paul?
I have.
Tell us more.
Why would I tell you these things?
He's got to save it for his next book.
Yeah. Well, we were in a house when we lived in Canada. This didn't happen to me and my sister. My sister and her friends were downstairs in the basement, which was a very, very dimly lit horror story. It just, you know, it just looked like something out of a horror story because I was like 8 years old, so everything did.
Right. One of them was scantily clad and one of them was black, so you knew it was a horror movie.
So my sister's down there. I guess she's 4 years older than I was at that point, and they were playing ping pong or whatever. And they came screaming upstairs, and my parents were like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And they're like, "There was a guy with purple floods down there." I, of course, had no idea what floods were. Being 8 or whatever I was, I kept thinking of what he's wearing water. What's going on here? So I thought she was trying to tell us the basement was flooded, and it was purple. I was very confused.
I would be.
Found out later that they saw or thought they saw some guy standing in the shadows near the stairs, and he was wearing purple high waders.
Oh.
And then he was gone, and they were freaked out. I have no idea if they made it up or not, but I do know when we moved from Canada to Houston, back to Houston, in the house we got in, I did not like my room at all. It was creepy as shit. I didn't like it. I thought I was hearing things. And then one morning I basically woke up because my head was hitting the side of my toy box and I fell down, and it was like somebody had just pushed me off the bed.
Oh my god!
So it was.
Yeah, no.
It scared the hell out of me. But
children's bedrooms are horrifying. And I don't know if that's just like a marker of American childhood or just, global childhood. I don't even know. But in basements, your story about the basement reminded me, one of the stories in this collection does have a creepy basement scene where like suddenly you see some creepy ass stuffed animal and you're like, what? No.
Oh God, that would be
I
can just see. Oh, God damn it! I can see somebody going in to clean out a house, go downstairs in the basement, and there's nothing but stuffed animals.
Oh yeah,
moldy stuffed animals across the walls.
This is just one though. It's just a guy and his friend. They're talking, and then the guy sees the stuffed animal and is looking at him. And that is from the mind of Casey Pierce. And oh my goodness, when I read that part, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, Casey. Whoo, because it really creeped me out.
If you were a little bit older than 8, you could have went out and got a pair of purple waders and stashed them somewhere in the basement.
Oh, that's cruel.
Oh, yeah. I would have done that.
My grandfather had a set of waders. My whole life growing up in the basement of my grandma's house, which is where my sister lives, who is also a part of this collection. There's a pair of like 4-foot-high waders hanging on the wall. They've been there my whole life.
Oh, God. Aren't those creepy?
They're still there. Yeah.
Aren't they creepy at night? Oh.
Oh my gosh.
There's the reason I try not to go in the garage at night. There's too many shadows. There's too many places for things to hide.
Is that why
there's never enough light?
Yeah, and basements too, because we've got some good basement stuff in this collection. Also, hospitals. There's a lot of hospital stuff because you're just a lot of emotion happens there. That stuff just lives in the walls, right? We've got birth and death, and then crazy, inexplicable states of dementia and catatonia. Things like that are going on in this collection.
We were talking earlier about Stephen King, and you sound like you're getting into Stephen King level of creepy now.
Do I really?
Yes.
Okay, the only Stephen King I've read, and I don't think it's a small batch, because I read the Dark Tower series, and oh my gosh, I've never been more devastated to be finished with a set of books. I think I was in mourning for like 2 weeks. I was like Buttercup. I was sitting alone in the corner of my room, and I was like, I will never love again, because I loved Roland so much and Eddie, and I was just, and I know that that's not like really his horror stuff necessarily. But boy, there were parts of that book where I'm like, what the hell? But I wanted to read Stephen King because I read a lot of books about writing advice. And I had read his book, of course, on writing. And I got to tell you guys, I don't know, maybe I sound like a jerk. This is why I wanted an all-women's anthology. But
God, here we go.
I know.
Here we go.
I just felt like, I was like, I don't know. I mean, his wife is a writer too, and he helped with the kids. But I just felt like this is me getting into a whole other book that I'm trying to write. But it was like, I need the writing advice for parents who are staying at home with their children. And the creative advice, not just writing, but how do you be a creative when you're stuck at home with your kids? And so I've actually got quite a few things written about that. But one of the things that bothered me about the Stephen King book was because he's like the king of anti-adverb, right? That's one of his big things in the top 10. That's like, and everyone shares it. They're like, because you're cool if you're sharing Stephen King's writing advice. But listen, he was the one who talked about adverbs, and in one of his books, and I can't think of which one it is right now. Okay, but he used it. Oh, you're laughing already because you know what it is. He used the adverb uglily.
Wow,
Uglily,
that's a word.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's not a word. That is a travesty, is what that is. I was so furious. I would have thrown the book, but I think I was reading it on my Kindle, and it was a library book, and you can't return them to the library if you break it on your Kindle.
I could see him doing that on purpose, just like Mark Twain used to do to the newspapers, where he writes something absolutely atrocious.
I don't care.
Just to trigger an editor. Just to trigger an editor.
Editor antagonism.
Okay, you guys see this? This is me triggered. Okay, I am pissed.
I'm glad I could contribute to this.
Uglily. He replied uglily. I'm like, how do you reply uglily to something? That is not a word. I'm all about making up words. Don't get me wrong. I love made up words. But don't ly on something and call it an adverb.
But you don't know for sure that was him. It could have been the editor. It could have been a proofreading mistake.
Oh, it was him. It was him.
Which book was it?
Was him.
Which book was it?
That's what I'm trying. No, I'm sorry. Like right now, and I have it written down somewhere because I have it in my notes of like Stephen King reasons I'm going to kill you.
Send a note to Stephen King. You should never use this word.
Wow! Wow! You only read one series by him, and you have a list.
It's a short list, but no, I love the series. Believe me, I loved the series. And I felt like I had to read more horror. If I was going to get my horror chops out there, and as a horror editor, I went to the king. I went to the source of it all, and I loved the series absolutely. But I was really offended that he wrote a whole book, and everyone talks about anti-adverbs, but then he said uglily. So Stephen King, if you're listening.
Oh, he'd never listened to the show.
I got to put it out there, right?
I've put it out there several times that I want to talk to about spendings.
I'm going to meme myself. Stephen King, if you're listening.
Uglily? Really?
Uglily. So, and I'm not anti-adverb. You will find adverbs in the book. They are there. They exist. And I'm comfortable with that. And I'm really comfortable with my handle on the English language. So, but I don't over rely on them. That's kind of my clincher. So there's my little editing tiff trigger, if you will. Oh my God.
Everybody writes their own way with adverbs, with everything. Mm-hmm. As long as it's your voice coming through, mm-hmm. the readers will tell you if you're wrong.
Oh yeah. Or your editor.
It was a struggle for me when I was first getting started writing things and having editors look at my stuff, because I was utterly terrified of them being too into my voice and changing my voice. Mm-hmm. And so it took a while to settle on what level of editing I was comfortable with before I would go on. And basically I write the story out, I read back through it and change the things that I think need changing. And then I send it off and I have it proofread. I don't actually have anything more in-depth than that because that's my comfort level. Anything more than that, and they start rearranging sentences, and I'm like, no. No.
Yep. No, I get that. I really do. And I'm not gonna deny that there isn't a certain stamp of Leah Lederman on some of the books that I've edited. I love Dirk Manning will say that I'll send something back to him that I've edited, and he said I had to rub my stink back on it. And I'm like, no, that's totally fair. That's a really good way to put that. With this particular collection, I loved it because I knew these women's voices going in. That's why I wanted them in the cafe and at the table with their creepy, weird relics that they were bringing. And there were different levels of editing for the various stories for various reasons. Some of them said, okay, some of it was more collaborative. Other things was definitely like, hey, this is pretty much just done. And it's already on the table. It's already finished. So it was interesting as an editor and a contributor to the project that the different stories, some of them are just a proofread or a line edit. Others were, much more collaborative. But in any case, even when I was collaborating, I was really clear to think to myself, like, or even just tell them, like, this is a really Leah sentence. Like, this is how I would say it. You say it. And I would try to do that kind of thing because that's how I edit. I'm aware, Terry, of that kind of fear and concern. And, for me, because I'm an editor and a writer, I don't necessarily want to get my stink all over people because that's my writing voice, right? That's my brand. So it gets tricky to parse those two apart. But I definitely endeavor to do that in all of my projects. Like, I don't want to give you all your lines or rearrange your sentences for you because then, unless I'm getting a co-writing credit for it, you know what I mean? Like, there's editing and there's co-writing, and I am not going to co-write this unless you really want me to.
With enough practice, as writers, we get to where we can not make too many egregious mistakes when we're writing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've written almost 20 novels at this point. So I'm comfortable with my voice.
Yes, exactly. No, and I'm not the kind of editor who goes in there like, oh, you need to change this up, even though I'm still mad at Stephen King. But you know what I mean? Like, but he he's a target. That's all I can say. But no, I don't go into any project desperate to put my name all over it, unless it's my project and it revolves around me, like the rest of the universe. But when I am when I am editing something, my goal is to make that writer's voice shine. And when I say their voice shine, I mean their voice, not mine. And so, I'll kind of give them a couple examples of, hey, this is what's not working here, and that kind of thing. But that's the art, and people lose that about editing. That editing really is an art. Trying to capture the essence of someone else's voice and how they articulate that, it requires a very fine, I'm not pitch perfect when I listen to a piano, but I feel pretty pitch perfect when I read someone's writing. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I try to do as an editor anyway.
Terry's always afraid somebody's going to just, steal his stuff, make it their own.
No. I have totally never been afraid of that.
Mm-hmm.
He's always afraid his editors are going to leak all his stuff, all his trade secrets.
One of the early hosts on this show, when I joined, didn't want to tell anyone the ideas of what he was writing, not in any detail at all, because he was afraid somebody would take the story and deal with it. Me, I just can't help dropping plot points and characters everywhere when I'm talking.
Yeah, I've been trying to be so good. I'm giving you here's a basement, here's a hospital, here's a syringe, here's moments, here's objects. But I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of the stories, of course, because I want people to discover them on their own. I do know people who are really regulated by their fear, and I think that can be, it can be a strength because everything's super secret, but I know it can be hampering. It can be a devastating effect. If you are so afraid of someone stealing your ideas that you don't even share them ever, then how are you going to get your voice out there? How are you going to get people to listen to you if you won't tell them anything? So, I mean, really, even part of the advertising campaign for this was me selecting my favorite lines out of the stories and inserting them into the artwork. So just there'd be a creepy line or two, and I would throw that out there, and it really got people interested. Here's just a sentence or two out of the story. What the hell is going on there? I want to read that. So, if you're going to advertise, you have to give away some of your secrets, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the other thing you cut yourself out of is actually being able to. Sometimes it's hard for us to admit as writers, but basically we steal from everything that we hear. We steal from everything we see. Well, if you get a bunch of lunatics at a table at a con, you start talking. You may not give away, show your entire hand of what you're writing. But you do want to show a few cards because there's some interplay, and actually I get some of my better ideas by listening to Terry's bad ones. Yeah. So this show every week is basically him throwing things at me and going, wow, that would be really cool if it wasn't done the way you said it to do it.
Every time I have an idea, he tells me story things, and suddenly my brain says, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we did that? And I'll just throw it right out there. It's brainstorming. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be good. Absolutely.
And I mean, there's always, of course, you can write anything. It doesn't have to be new. Your idea is always your idea because it's your voice. Right. There's nothing new under the sun. Every story's already been told. But even if you feel like so many writers do, oh, this story's already been told. I mean, I started out talking about universal themes. So these universal themes we've been talking about for hundreds of years, thousands. Yes. So what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is we're in the 21st century, and here is this specific group of women and these voices. And no one else could tell it the way that we do. No one else could arrange these stories the way that they've been arranged. It has to be this way. And that's what makes it an original artwork. So yeah, it's all the same idea being translated over and over, but how well you translate it, how well you use those adverbs.
How well you make it yours.
Yeah, exactly. You got to rub your stink on it. And that's what does it. So, right. There's nothing new under the sun except for you. So, as Dr. Seuss would say, be the best you can be, right? That's what writers do. That's what I do as an editor, is try to make the writer's voice shine as much as possible. And that's what's come out of this whole project, was 9 different voices, or 18, if you consider that there's 9 female artists as well. and each one of them is expressing themselves as clearly and articulating their fears and their concerns as clearly as possible. Because I definitely fall into, you know, the whole, what is it? The first book I taught was called The World is a Text. And so everything is a text, people's faces, the sidewalk, the sky, everything is a text that can be read. And so I loved the levels of text available in this book, which is also a text.
Now we're getting very, very meta. Now you sound like an editor. Now you sound like an editor.
My grad school came through.
Yeah, exactly. Now you sound like an academic.
I do that. Like, it's the ex-boyfriend. I was hoping he was listening.
It's all right. I have a rather uneasy relationship with literature because that's what my degree is in, and that's also what I'm just not capable of writing. So one day maybe.
What do you write? What do you mean you're not capable of writing?
It's just a matter of my ideas just don't translate well to what would be considered literature. Those just aren't the stories I write.
Yeah.
Although I've tried. I've tried. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, no, okay, that's fair. Because I'm all like, well, isn't a story already literature? I'm getting into this, but I'll stop because I can.
You know what I'm talking about.
I know.
Capital L literature.
Yeah, the high fancy.
The capital L.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I get that because there's a little bit I know with certain circles of which I am part. I didn't write that anthology, but you know, horror is often considered. There's a whole Facebook group I'm part of, a writers group, and I've been published through them even they were like wrote a manifesto about how horror wasn't really literature. What? And I was like, hey, I'm sorry, but Mary Shelley thank you, Jinx, sort of. Mary Shelley might disagree. And in fact, again, that goes back to the cafe. One of the things that I loved about this, I read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein when I was 14 or 15, and I fell in love with the idea. It was my first paper I ever wrote on literature, that they were just hanging out on a stormy night, telling each other scary stories, basically. It was, you know, with the Byron and the Shelleys hanging out. And I thought, that's what I want.
Yes, but you didn't include the opium. You have to include the opium.
Well, you know, drug of choice. Yeah.
Hey, if it's good enough for Sherlock Holmes, it's good enough.
Yeah. Right.
That was cocaine.
It was cocaine, but still, you know, the drug of choice is good enough for whomever, whatever character, it's good enough.
So, you know, that was one of the things that I was after, was that kind of intercourse, so to speak, with that there was the Shelleys and Lord Byron, and they were just telling each other scary stories, and I love that, and that's what I wanted for my writers, my project, that same kind of, oh, there's my kitty, that same kind of deal. Yeah, he's a ghost. Now the whole internet's going to see you. People don't know that he exists.
Little girl just ran up as well.
Oh, now it's turned into the cat show.
The cat lady hour.
It's cats all the time.
My cats aren't in here. They don't love me no more.
I'm so sorry.
Well, he might be back there somewhere. There's no telling.
The cats only love me because I kick the kids out.
Yes, they're hiding from the kids. I understand that completely.
Of course. Yeah.
So how exactly does that work that they say horror is not literature?
Oh gosh. It was a manifesto and I've heard it more than once, but it was just kind of like, oh, this is just this low form. And I don't know. I think even among horror fans, some of us thumb our nose at certain subgenres of horror, right? Like certain people will go, oh my gosh, another thrasher or another torture thing. And, you know, so you have subgenres that people go, oh, that's not horror or that's just junk. So no matter what you do, there's going to be someone out there calling it junk. So that's all I can say about that is that, you know, I don't need to give too much credence to this person's or this group's ideas, because it all comes out in the wash. And in 100 years, if you've written something good, I don't care if it's horror or sci-fi or romance.
Or how it's categorized.
Yeah, thank you. And I don't care how it's categorized. Did you write it well? Did you write it with passion? Are your characters relatable? You know, that's what matters. That's what makes it literature. So that's why I disagreed with you when you said you didn't write literature, because if you write well and then that's it. It doesn't matter what you're writing. That's really my opinion. So there's my high horse.
I will say that as for what I write, definitely not literature. I grew up, I am as far from literature as you can get.
I'm going to step this one out.
I grew up in the age where I read science fiction space opera written in the 40s, 50s, 60s, because that's what I bought at the used bookstore as a kid. It's what I could afford. And it's what I write now. I've gone back to the joy of what I wrote then. So it's popcorn. It's popcorn adventure science fiction.
Yeah, there's something to be said
no
about
literature involved here.
Yeah, I can say that, but okay, first of all, my dad used to always tell us we would read summer reading lists every summer, and he would have, he would go over our list, and there would be classics and all of this, and he could be a little bit of a snob. He was an ancient Greek professor. And he did say, like, the horror was just not even an option at our house, and sci-fi was like low on the plate as well. But as an adult, I really discovered those genres and thought, no matter what genre you're writing in, if you write it well, it's literature. And that was the argument I would have with him now. But as far as popcorn, I'm a big sucker for a good mystery thriller, or a little. I read oh my gosh, I read Bird Box.
Oh yeah.
And Josh Malerman, oh my God, dude. Some of his turns of phrase, and of course I couldn't tell you one right now. I've got them underlined. I was reading them at 2 or 3 in the morning. I had a brand new baby, like 2 weeks old, and I was flipping my shit.
So let me read about this woman dragging her 2 kids where they're all blindfolded and go down a river.
For postpartum literature.
Yeah, that was probably not a good choice. Why didn't you choose surfacing instead?
You know what? Because honestly, there's a whole postpartum lecture in here. I mean, anything can be bad news for you. But I read Bird Box because I knew it was coming out on Netflix, and it's a hobby of mine is to read the books that things are based on. And so what I was thinking though was, like, some people would argue it's not high literature, but I was moved by turns of phrase.
Yeah, that book is actually quite good. I really enjoyed it.
I was really impressed. I was really impressed with his friggin' acknowledgement section, or what. I don't know. I was just like, who is this man? I just loved, how he wrote. And it was a writer's book through and through, is what I felt about that. And that's kind of what I'm aspiring to, that sort of thing with Cafe Macabre. Macabre. That's what I'm aspiring to, is something that, whether, I keep going on and yakking about girls. That's just because I'm surrounded by boys, dude. But it's certainly not a book for women. You know what I mean? It's for everyone, very much. But it was just the stories that women felt that they needed to tell. And I just happened to have access to them. So, hey, I'm going to go with it. So, yeah, again, I'm really excited. I'm getting an itchy trigger finger to check the Kickstarter.
Yeah, well,
it's probably funded by now.
It might very well be funded by now.
Oh my God.
Might very well be.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, so you can get back to, refreshing your browser.
Priorities.
Yeah, I see how this works.
No, I love you guys so much. I have subscribed and everything. So.
Oh, that was your second mistake. First mistake was agreeing to be on air. Second mistake was subscribing.
Yeah, whatever you do, don't go back and start listening from episode 1. You will be disappointed.
Don't do it.
Oh,
don't
do it.
No.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you guys so much. This was so much fun for me. I don't get to talk to adults ever. So
that's okay. I don't either, because I've got Terry to deal with.
Yeah, and the cats.
Screamer doesn't like you talking that way.
Well, before we let you go, we got to sign off and do all the rigmarole here. So if you would like to talk to us about Leah, who, by the way, where should we send people to talk to you?
Tell us where to send people.
My different things that I...
That's right.
Oh, goodness. Where is it? It's leahlederman.wordpress.com. And Lederman, by the way, is spelled Lederman. So that always throws people, but it's leahlederman.wordpress.com is my blog site, my website. I do write blogs there, and they are about writing and editing, and sometimes about the little varmints who call me mother. I make them call me mother.
Yeah, they could be calling you something worse.
I know. They do that too. Believe me, that's in there. And then there's I'm on Facebook. I have an editing page, which is facebook.com/Lederman editing, or you could just look me up, Leah Lederman editing on Facebook. I think that's about it. I'm on Twitter, but I'm really bad at it. You
mean you're bad at posting?
No, I just don't know how it quite works. I mean, I could tell you all the ways that I don't understand it, but I feel like I'm a social networker in a cast when I'm on Twitter. And that's just Leah Lederman. But yeah, mainly I'm on Facebook and I'm on my blog site. So you can either find me on Facebook, Leah Lederman Editing, or you can find me on WordPress, leahlederman.wordpress.com.
All right.
All right.
Well, now we know. You know, you're only $300 away from funding.
Oh my God.
Ooh. See what you've done now? You've completely derailed everything.
Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. You should
Not you. I'm talking to him.
This has been quite the whirlwind, but I've come up with stretch goals, and we're good. We're good. We're going to make this happen. This is really amazing. Thanks, guys.
You're very welcome. Well, folks, you should go check out her Kickstarter page, which hopefully will be funded by the time this airs.
Yes, but there's awesome stretch goals. We're talking like extra bonus stories and bonus art. So like really check it out. And I don't know what the URL is for that, but look it up on Kickstarter. It's Cafe Macabre, and it's all over my website and the Facebook page.
All right. Do that, folks.
Yes, please.
If you want to send us an email and tell us how badly I screwed up this interview or this little talk, or Terry for that matter, because we know Leah was perfect, you can send us an email to show@deadrobotsociety.com. You can tweet me at Paul_E_Cooley as I go completely into my basement darkness. I just completely lost my mind. You can also find us on Facebook at the Listeners, the Dead Robot Society Facebook group, where all the insanity happens. You can find us at YouTube at youtube.com/DRS podcast. We have to thank our wonderful host, pod hoster, who makes all 1 bazillion episodes of Dead Robot Society available for your ear holes. And of course, you can find us at Patreon at patreon.com/DRS podcast, where you contribute to the show and get exclusive rewards like access to live shows, unexpurgated shows, and other insane madness for as little as $1 a month.
Way to go, Paul.
What?
Way to go, Paul.
What did I do now?
You kept stumbling your way through there. That was awesome.
I'm not done yet. Fucking jackass. Every goddamn show. Every show you have to do something. Like I said, at the $10 level, you get your name read. I already had it up, you bonehead. And our $10 patrons this week are JD Barker, Veronica Jaguar of the Secret World Chronicle podcast. Yeah, we kind of get it. Jack F. Erickson, get on with it. Kelson 9, Nimble Nobleman Nibbling Nuts. Isabel Cushy, Rick Shaw, Lisa Slack, Nathan Cosby, Cheryl Winters, Tracy Bodine, Devin Lee, Drew Fear the Drop Bears Bernardi. Drop Bears?
Yes. Like drop commandos, but they're bears.
Chris Winder, Andre Conde Moraes, DJ Chamberlain, and J.R. Hanley.
Thanks for your support, folks. We deeply appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much. With that, Leah, thank you very much for coming on. It's been a blast.
Thank you. Yes, that was fun.
And best of luck to you with the Kickstarter and everything else.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you. All right, folks, we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.